Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today with you all. Hopefully you can see my screen now. Um, as was mentioned, I'm Christine Xu from Aquatic Life Institute. We're an international NGO with a mission to improve aquatic animal welfare in both aquaculture and fisheries. I've been at ALI for 4 years. Before joining ALI, I worked on ending illegal fishing policy at the Pew Charitable Trust in DC, and now I live in Madrid. So at ALI, we take a 4R approach, which is reducing the number of aquatic animals involved in the seafood supply chain, refining the ways in which they're farmed or caught in the wild, replacing animal products with alternative sustainable plant-based or cell-based products, and rejecting the introduction of new aquatic animals into the system. And we take this approach in all of the programmatic areas in which we work in, including policy reform, advocating among seafood certifications, corporate campaigns, and our global alliances. I've included one example here. One of the main messages that we advocate for is shifting in how we view aquatic animals, not merely as seafood, but as individuals. So why do we advocate for this message? I'll put this into context for you in terms of the number of animals slaughtered every year globally. In aquaculture, we're talking about 100 billion aquatic animals that's farmed and killed every year. But in capture fisheries, we're talking about 2 to 3 trillion aquatic animals caught and killed for human consumption every year. Now, compared to all farmed land animals combined, this is 35 times higher, which just goes to show the huge discrepancy in the legal protections we provide for aquatic animals versus land animals, and the huge neglectedness of this issue, particularly when we talk about sustainable seafood, because animal welfare is not really in the conversation right now. Also, the type of language we use for aquatic animals is really important. You might know that we count them in terms of tonnage and say, and use the word stock, as in fish stocks, instead of counting them in terms of individual animals involved, which is the case for farmed land animals. And I think this is a huge problem because, it distorts our perception of fish by reducing them to just food, and also diminishes their intrinsic value as living beings. So I want to show you some photos of aquaculture farms. This is what you typically see when you hear about farmed fish. It's incredibly varied, but actually I want to show you what they look like in real life, which we often don't take into account. So these are some very intensive fish and shrimp farms, and they often have very high stocking density, heavy antibiotic use, poor water quality, and high dependence on wild-caught fish for fish feed. Moving on to capture fisheries, similarly, these are some of the images we usually see in textbooks or online when we talk about fisheries. And in real life, this is what it actually looks like. Long lines, trawlers, and purse seiners, sorry. In real life, this is what they actually look like. So we have fish dying under their own weight in these heavy, huge fishing nets, bottom trawlers that scrape everything along the seafloor and destroys everything in its path, extracting as much animals as we can with high levels of bycatch, and letting them die a long, cruel death by asphyxiation on board. Meanwhile, the global appetite for fish continues to increase. So as the demand for fish consumption grows, so will destruction to our marine ecosystems, and aquatic animals continue to grow as well. So I'll stop there, and hopefully it stirred some interest in thinking about aquatic animal welfare when we talk about sustainable seafood. I will stop sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. And maybe just to to just push you a little bit further on this, because it's interesting how you relate, animal welfare back to fish, and it's true that you don't often think about welfare and fish together. And I'm just wondering, is it something to do with our own inability to empathize with fish, or at least empathize much less with fish than we would with land-based mammals? I mean, is that something that is a bit challenging for us humans to actually empathize with fish?
I would definitely agree with that. In fact, personally, when I wasn't working in the animal welfare field, I never really thought about it for aquatic animals. And I think that's very common to say for most people, even fisheries management professionals and ocean conservationists. So yeah, and when we think about animal welfare, land animals, we can see them more easily. We can hear them. Aquatic animals, they don't have vocal cords, so they suffer literally in silence, which I think for, people in the fishing industry, some of them are aware, but most of them, because they suffer in silence, they don't really think about that actively as they are, dumped and left on deck, basically. So I definitely think that we should bring this animal welfare conversation into our mind and the conversations that we have going forward when we talk about seafood and what's really sustainable seafood. I think it should include ethical production of, fish.